All right, today we are taking a look at a little bit of a lower key subject, lower key video, not super serious, but you might have noticed that there was a little game that came out for Spider-Man just yesterday, and that was Spider-Man Miles Morales. Miles Morales is actually a complicated character to get into because he started out in one universe and eventually transitioned over into another universe where he now resides. Comic books. So before we jump into this and tell you where you can start reading Miles Morales if you are interested in this character, we are playing through the Spider-Man Miles Morales game over on our Let's Play channel, which is linked in the description down below and very likely a pinned comment as well, where we're actually starting a couple of PlayStation 5 Let's Plays this weekend, including both Miles Morales Spider-Man and Demon's Souls on the PlayStation 5. We've recently played through quite a few games, from Spyro Reignited, which we're kind of working on finishing, all the way to Marvel's Avengers, even Batman Arkham Origins, and the Resident Evil 1 remake. So there's a lot of stuff over there. I hope you will check it out and become part of an awesome community over there, which is really cool, low-key. We have a fun time and hang out, and I'll be seeing you there. Now, let's hop into Miles. Wait a minute. Uh-oh. So Miles Morales is difficult to start reading because there is a lot of lead up to him. If you actually wanted to get the full experience to lead up to Miles Morales, you would have to start back in, I believe, about 2000 with the original Peter Parker Ultimate Comics run, which is a lot. Like, we're talking 150 issues, a lot. Now, I personally don't really think you need to do that. I'm assuming that you have at least a basic grasp of who Peter Parker was in the Ultimate Universe, and if you don't, he was just Spider-Man in high school. Yes, there's a lot more to it than that, and yes, those comics are great and worth your time, but to jump into Miles, it is quite a journey to actually get in there. Now, some of the hardcovers that I have that will get you started are not easily available on the market anymore, and some of them are. For example, the Ultimate Death of Spider-Man, there's a few versions of this. I have the hardcover. This is really kind of the, I don't know if you'd say compendium, like the version with a lot in it. It doesn't hold a candle to Death of Superman, but there is quite a bit in this, and actually Miles first shows up in this storyline. He shows up in Ultimate Fallout issue 4, which is included in this, Ultimate Comics Fallout number 4. Now, there's quite a bit in here. The issue with this is that this leads up to the key title. You know, this is transitioning from Peter Parker into Miles Morales in the Ultimate Universe. So if you want to get the whole Peter Parker story, like I said, it starts way back, but I don't really think you need it. You actually can jump in right here at the beginning of this book, which is actually, I feel like I should tell you which issue it is as well, because not all of these versions, not every version of these books has the same exact thing, but if you are going to start here, Ultimate Comics Spider-Man number 15 is kind of what starts it. Then you move into Ultimate Comics Spider-Man 151 through 154. And then there are some Avengers versus New Ultimates tie-ins that you can read. But Ultimate Comics Spider-Man 156 through 160 sort of then leads into Fallout. Fallout is the event that takes place after the passing of Peter Parker, the passing of the torch in this universe, to Miles. But the difference is that you don't really know who Miles is yet. You actually find out who Miles is in issue 4 of Ultimate Comics Fallout. So if you just want his very first appearance, that would be the issue. The problem is that appearance doesn't make any sense in context if you start there. So at the very least, I think you should start at Ultimate Comics Fallout issue 1. But I would say if you're being really thorough, to start with the entire Death of Ultimate Spider-Man storyline. We actually then move into what becomes Miles Morales' own series. This was prior to moving to the the mainline Marvel Universe, Earth 616. We get into Miles Morales, the Ultimate Spider-Man. And you're going to notice the wording on some of these titles is a bit weird. Again, some of these you may be able to still get this hardcover. I'm not sure. I know some of them from the Marvel Omnibus editions are not available anymore, especially the old Peter Parker stuff. Like for me, mine's a little damaged because this is the only condition I could get it in, but I'm fine with it because I wanted to own it. But if we look at this actually, as my book squeaks like crazy, This kind of starts on Ultimate Comics Spider-Man number 1 through 12, and they actually have material in here from Ultimate Fallout number 4, actually included right in there. So if you kind of started with this, you could essentially skip the Ultimate Death of Spider-Man, but the problem is that the Ultimate Death of Spider-Man has a massive, massive impact on this world going forward. It's constantly referenced to, they're constantly bringing up Peter Parker and what ended him. There's a lot of tie-ins with Oscorp and other stuff going on, and this, though, is where you get Miles's actual origin story. You know, this is how Miles gets his spider powers, is right at the beginning of this in Ultimate Comics Spider-Man number 1. The problem is there is also an Ultimate Comics Spider-Man before this, I believe in 2011. So the one you're wanting is later on. That's the thing, this all gets very confusing, and a lot of these things have the same name.
And this is where I'm glad I double check actually what I put out before I finish editing it, because there is one telltale feature I missed on the covers of these somehow all these years that really do separate it from the original run, other than just Miles' suit, which is that this is Ultimate Comics all new Spider-Man. It says that on most of the covers here. It's red and next to the Spider-Man word. So if you are ever in doubt, all new Spider-Man is the one that we're actually looking at for Miles, not Peter.
But when you start to get into the meat and bones of Miles as a character, it's actually in Spider-Man. I don't have that hardcover, but it's included in here. So if you are able to get this is, I feel like I'm going to sweat all over this because I'm a gross sweaty nerd for some reason today. But if you are able to get into this will have a ton of the starting materials for you. Because even if you didn't want to pick up Ultimate Death of Spider-Man, you still have some of the stuff from Ultimate Fallout 4. You have all of Spider-Man in here, which is where Miles actually meets the main universe Peter Parker. And you're able to kind of get a different dichotomy between those two characters and what separates Miles from Peter. This is sort of where Miles starts developing later on in Spider-Man, where people really started to care about this character, I believe. It does keep going on into Ultimate Comics Spider-Man. That keeps going. And you can also get to Miles Morales Ultimate Spider-Man 1 through 12 later on. There is Cataclysm, which is an event that happened, but I don't think it's necessary. It's totally up to you. I know, it's quite a bit to take in.
The frustrating thing here is that even in my own omnibus, I didn't notice this, but it was one thing I never liked when I tried to get into this character. Marvel has a real thing for relaunches for some reason, especially when they were nearing the end of the Ultimate Universe. That's where Miles Morales Ultimate Spider-Man comes in, because we got Miles Morales Ultimate Spider-Man issues 1 through 5 and Ultimate Spider-Man issue 200 in Ultimate Spider-Man Volume 1 Revival. So it gets very confusing here, but there are 2 more renumbered volumes here. It's Miles Morales Ultimate Spider-Man Volume 1 Revival, and then Miles Morales Ultimate Spider-Man Volume 2 Revelations. After that, we kind of start to move out of the Ultimate Universe. There are other things you certainly can look up to read before we move into Secret Wars, but for the sake of time and not making you read 500,000 comic books, I'm going to just move into Secret Wars.
Once we've gotten through Miles' standalone comic series in the Ultimate Universe and Spider-Man, we kind of hit this point. This was a point in Marvel's history where they were phasing out Earth. I believe it's 1616. I always mess it up for the Ultimate Universe, but regardless, they were phasing out the Ultimate Universe really because a lot of the sales didn't really justify it. Other than Spider-Man, that was kind of the one thing holding true at this point, and a lot of the characters were dead. I mean, a lot. Half the X-Men roster, dead. Peter Parker, nuh-uh, he's gone. I mean, like, everybody was gone. And it got to the point where even Reed Richards had become a supervillain at this point in the Ultimate Universe. So they had kind of run out of people. So they decided, hey, you know what? Everybody loves Miles, and for the most part, people really did like Miles at this point. His popularity peaking after Into the Spider-Verse, nonetheless. They were like, let's move him over to Earth 616. Let's move him into the classic, modern Marvel continuity that everybody's reading. So this happens. I'm not going to get into details and spoilers of this. I want you to read it yourself. It's actually a really good story, but essentially this is about the ends of the universe and how they kind of come back together to make a new continuity, which is still in a lot of ways the same. But Miles does survive past this, and he also does make minor appearances as well in Ultimate End. These are companion stories. If you have more of an interest in the Ultimate Universe itself, this is absolutely something that you can read. However, if you really don't, I suppose you could just read Ultimate End issue 4 along, or is it, yeah, like 4 and 5 along with this. That's where Miles starts to appear a little bit more in Ultimate End and have a little more impact on it. But these two are certainly companion pieces. The final starting point that really gets you into modern day, and you could even, if you really want to, skip all that and just jump in here, but I think you're missing a lot of context, is just Spider-Man Miles Morales. This is where Miles hit the mainstream in terms of the Marvel Universe. He actually jumped into Earth 616. However, without Secret Wars, you're missing a lot of the context of how that happened. And without the original Ultimate Run, you're missing a lot of context of what had made Miles up to this point. Now, this does sort of start to expand him in different ways into his own character as well inside the modern, normal Marvel Universe. But again, I do highly recommend you check out the other stuff as well. But this book actually sort of starts with, I believe it's just called Spider-Man Miles Morales, but I actually have to look again because the naming on these are insane. I would certainly say, again, just to kind of recap it, because I know this is a lot and I did my best to kind of run through it in order. If you want to get the impact of what Peter Parker's passing had on the Ultimate Universe and why Miles coming up was so important, the Ultimate Death of Spider-Man is a great start. However, you can skip this, but you're going to miss a lot of context into who Miles is in the rest of this run. If you do skip that, you sort of start with this massive book, which again, I need to look at the picture or the name of, because I always mess up what they actually are, which is Ultimate Comics 1 through 12, and then moving into Spider-Man, and then moving back into Ultimate Comics Spider-Man for the rest of Miles's run. Again, you're not wanting the Ultimate Comics Spider-Man with Peter on it. Miles's suit is very distinct. It should be very easy to tell which it is. And I believe this series started in 2012, but I might be a little off on that because my head knowledge is a little hazy at this point. After moving through that, I think it is really important to get the context of Secret Wars and the end of Ultimate End. If you don't want to read all this, maybe you're not that interested in what's going on in the Ultimate Universe and it ending, I totally get it. Most people weren't. That's why it died. But I would say at least issues 4 and 5 of this are worth a read, and they go along with this as a companion piece, which moves Miles into the mainline Earth continuity with this, just Spider-Man. Now, often there will be a Miles Morales subtitle, I guess would be the way to put it. Is that what you call it? I guess it is. A subtitle underneath just the Spider-Man, but this is probably the way to go. If you can find this Spider-Man Miles Morales Marvel Omnibus, this is a great way to do it. The Marvel Omnibus collection is a great way to get into most of these characters. I know that the Ultimate Death of Spider-Man was a Marvel Omnibus, so was this Miles Morales, the Ultimate Spider-Man, and so was Spider-Man Miles Morales, but some of these other ones are a little more obscure, I suppose. So I hope that this helped at least a little bit. I know that it's kind of bad naming. Someone just got mad at me, but I think it's convoluted naming. I think that when Bendis started this run, his expectation was not that the Ultimate Universe was going to die and go away. His expectation was that the Ultimate Universe was here to stay, and his new character, Miles Morales, was going to carry on the legacy of Peter in that universe. However, I do think it stands as a testament to Miles that he was able to transcend the death of an entire comic book universe and make it into a new one. Very few characters are able to do something like that, are able to make the jump from one continuity to another one permanently, and it takes a very special character to be able to do that and not feel ramrodded into current canon, which Miles never really has been. So anyway, let me know what you think in the comments down below. I hope you enjoyed this. I'm trying to aim for like one of these a month, along with probably one of the games you forgot about a month. Those are kind of my special series that are really important to me, that I try to take my time on, really research and know what I'm talking about. Might not seem like it because the naming's so confusing, but trust me, it took a long time to actually put together everything I needed for this. Let me know what you think down there in the comments. Are there other characters you want to see? Some I have planned are Superman. I also have planned the Watchmen universe, along with some other stuff like that. So let me know what you're thinking. You know what? I really appreciate all of you. I appreciate you putting up with me and enjoying my content. It actually does mean a lot. I've had a lot of fun this past couple months. I'm not going away or anything, but I don't know. I just thought it was worth saying. And I hope to see you over there on the Let's Play channel and just kind of hang out. We can enjoy Miles together. We can enjoy Demon Souls and some other stuff coming up. Have a fantastic day. And as always, everybody, stay shway.